Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at the countermeasures and RWR in the RAZBAM AV-8B Harrier 2. So first thing to note is that if you want to change your dispenser cartridges, you can't do that in Sim. It all has to be done via this tab in the mission editor. You can't go into the rearm refuel section like you can with, say, like the F16 or the F18. This actually needs to be done from this section, so you can change flares and chaff for each part of the dispenser, both left, right and bottom. I don't normally mess with that because I find that the setup there is pretty much good to go. But if you're going into a high threat radar guided missile mission, then you may want to change some of the flares out for chaff, and again the same way if you think you're going to be under high IR missile threat in your mission, then you may want to take more flares. But as I say, this is the section that you need to change that in. And just to quickly look at the aircraft, look at the dispensers. So you've got two sections at the top and left and right, and then you have one either side at the bottom. So this is where obviously where the countermeasures come from. So depending on where you've set it up in this section will be where it is on the aircraft. Right, okay, so let's get into the sim and have a look at programming the countermeasures. Okay, so I'm in the active pause at the moment. Before we can dispense the countermeasures, we need controls to actually dispense them. So if we just go to adjust controls and we go to HOTAS, if you come down to ECM here, ECM dispense, so we've got chaff, flares, as you can see I've got those bound to buttons on my HOTAS. And then the other main one is all. Now there is a section in the programming where you can program everything to come out, flares and chaff, and that will come under that section. I don't have it bound, but it is bound to the 0 key, so I should be able to show you. I don't have that bound to anything purely because I find that I like to select the type of countermeasure for the kind of threat environment. So if I know if it's IR, I can just fire my flares. If it's radar guided, I can just fire my chaff. Whereas if you use all, you'll end up wasting what could be valuable countermeasures. So I tend not to use all, but that's just my preference. Okay, so let's jump back in the cockpit. Okay, so now that we've looked at the controls, let's just look at some other bits and pieces that are on the surrounding area here to the MPCD. Okay, so these are the threat warning lights. So this will tell you what kind of the threat is incoming. So it will say SAM or things like that. And down here we have the expendables dial. It's on auto at the moment, so that everything fires one at a time out of each cartridge pack. So it will go left, right, down, down, left, right, down, down, just to keep everything even. You can change that up and just use the upper dispensers. As you see, I've got chaff and flares, so it'll only fire anything that's in the upper dispensers. And then if we switch it to down, you can see I've only got flares in the lower section, so it will only fire flares. There is a section that says RWR, but I can't find anything that will make that work. I'm not sure if it's actually operative or not, but I like to keep it in auto just to keep things even. And then over here on the left hand side we have our chaff, flare and program. Now if we click these, it will change the letter underneath. Now chaff only has two letters, single or program. So if we have anything programmed that will fire the program when we press the chaff button. If we go to single, it will just release one single chaff out of one cartridge. Same with the flares, got 120 flares, single at the moment. We hit it, that's program, so it will fire the program that we've put in. M is multiple, which will fire 4 flares out of the both uppers and both lowers. And then if we hit that button again, we've got G, and that stands for group. That's it, group. So if we've got our program, it will fire a grouped program. And then we've got R, which seems to just do the same as single, doesn't really do much, but I'll show you what each of these ones do anyway. So we put that back to single, and obviously you pretty much know what a single shot of chaff and a single shot of flare looks like, so I won't bother showing you that. But if we hit this button here to program it, across the top we've got all chaff, flare. These correspond with each button that I showed you in the adjust controls, and all being both chaff and flare, and you can set your burst quantity and sequence quantity there, and the flare quantity there, and then you've got burst interval, sequence interval, and then just interval for flare. So if we take that off, start with the flares. At the moment it's just one flare and it's set to 1 second, so pretty box standard there. But if we come over to the left hand side in the ODU, hit quantity here, I'm going to put 4 in, and unfortunately you can't go into intervals of seconds, so I would have gone for a 0.5, but you can't, unfortunately. It's just rounded up, so 1 second, 2 second, 3 seconds, so on, you know. So I'll keep it as 1 second, so 1 flare and then 1 second between another flare, and so on. So if we come to come out of program and click flare, so it's in program there, we've got it on auto. And if we jump out of the cockpit, okay, so this is what the program looks like with just the single shot program. Okay, so we've got 2 out the bottom, 1 out each side of the top. Then if we come down and switch to group, so past multiple, and now we are into the group program, so let's have a look at that. And if we press the flare dispense this time, we get the same program, but this time grouped flares. This is by far one of my favourites, as it seems more effective. You're getting more decoy out there. There's more for the missile seeker to look for. So yeah, that's it in group. And like I said previously, if you put it in M for multiple, it will just fire a salvo of 4 every time you press the flare button. So and R, like I said again, is just a repeat of just single shot. So put that back to S. Okay, so we're going to go back into program and do the chaff this time. So this is a little different, as we've got burst quantity and sequence quantity. So with the chaff, it'll only fire from the upper banks because that's where only place I have chaff. So burst quantity, how many shots of chaff do we want to fire out in our program? So if we click chaff, go to burst quantity, again I'm going to put 4, enter, and then what we can do is if we push that again and come into this section here, we've got burst int, so burst interval. So now this, I'm annoyed that you can't actually physically do this with the flares, but with chaff you can do intervals of seconds. So I change that to 0.5, so every half a second we'll get a shot of chaff. Now, how many times do we want that program of chaff? So at the moment it's just one sequence of 4 every half a second. We can change that. We can go to sequence quantity, and if I put in 3 and the interval between each sequence, keep that as 1, but you can change that in Sint here. Actually, no, we'll change that to 2 into that. Okay, so we've got that programmed, so we just hit this button here and we're back in. So like I say, with chaff you can only do single shot or program. Now if we jump outside, I'll show you what it does. Okay, so let's try this program out. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that was my program done. Last but not least, I'll show you all. So we come down to program, click on all, and you can see everything's back to how it was originally. So what we'll do is we'll just program in exactly the same as what I've done with the chaff and flare separately. So if we do burst quantity 4, burst interval 0.5, sequence was 3, and we'll keep that as 1 second. And then with the flares it was 4 every second. So okay, so you can see we've got a burst of 4 chaff every so we've got a single shot of chaff every half a second 4 times, and then that burst will be repeated another 2 times with a second in between each one. And with the flares we will fire 4 flares with a second interval in between each flare. I forgot to add that for the dispense all to work, when you come out of program, just make sure that the flares and chaff are in single shot. Otherwise, if they're in program, you'll end up just firing the program you've set up for separate dispensing. So keep those as single. And now we'll jump out and have a look. Right, okay, so let's hit dispense all. There you go. So everything was fired in the dispense all, like set up in program. Just need to remember that the dispense all is set up as single shots, so when you press the dispense all, just make sure that you've got single under each one. If you have it in P for program, all you're going to get is your chaff program. Other than that, that's all the countermeasures. So yeah, I guess next I'll show you the Ecm and Rwr. So let's jump into that section. Right, so to show you the Rwr and the Ecm Pod working, I've just made up a simple setup. I've got a friendly Typhoon here, a enemy MiG-29 here, I have an SA-8 here, and I have a SAM site here, which I have as the SA-3 goer. So yeah, we will see how the Rwr shows these and how it lets you know that there's a threat and if you need to do anything about it. And of course we've got the Harrier out off the coast. So yeah, before we get into the aircraft, obviously you will need to load on the Ecm Pod, the ANALQ164. So make sure that you have that on the center section. Just one more thing I forgot to show you. Brain farts seem to be a theme for this video. For the RWR to work, obviously we need points of ways of receiving that, and we have little nubbins here too on the rear of the aircraft, which cover like this back quarter, and then we've got one on the wingtip here and another one on the wingtip here, which cover the front quarter. So that way we have 360-degree coverage, but it's only horizontal coverage. There's nothing above or below. So if you bank and all of a sudden your RWR goes quiet, you've not dodged the missile or the lock. All you've done is gone into the blank spot or the blind spot, because there's no way of detecting the threat from the top or the bottom of the aircraft. So once you level out again, boom, you'll get your alerts again, or you'll be hit. So yeah, there's just that to be aware of as well. I'm not sure why they don't have coverage top and bottom. That seems a bit of an odd thing. I'm not an absolute expert on, well, not even an expert on electronic warfare, so I'm not sure why that is the case, but yeah, you have a massive blind spot on the bottom and the top of the aircraft. Okay, now we can jump into the cockpit. Right, okay, so let's take a look at the RWR. So, okay, we've got an unknown aircraft here. We can tell that because we've got a chevron above it. We've got a MiG-29, again with a chevron. We've got the Harrier here, which has the shape of a hull underneath. We have an unknown here, which will be an early warning radar, but I know there's an OSA 8 there as well. Sorry, an SA8 OSA, and over here is the Goa SA3 with the radar. So let's look at the Ecm Pod. So the controls for that are here. We've got 5 options. We've got off, standby, built-in test, receive, which is a passive. It will only activate once it's been attacked, and then we have a 5th option, repeat, which I'm guessing just repeats the signal over and over and over again. I don't know what the benefit of that is. The Ecm Pod has its main advantages against ground targets, not so much against air. I tend to keep mine in receive, so that the music only comes on when it needs to. I've got my expendables all set up. RWR is on and at acceptable volume. So let's fly into the mix and see if we can get some attention, and I'll show you anything that changes. Also to add that the symbology is also on the HUD, MiG-29, the unknown air target there, the Harrier. It's a bit mixed in at the moment, but as we get into the fight, it'll start to show itself. So let's unpause this and see what happens. Okay, so we've got another unknown target there, and you can tell it's a new one when there's a dome above it. Okay, so if we pause that, oh, okay, there we go. We've got a lock from the MiG-29, or it's tracking us, so it's shifted from the outer ring to the next one in, and we've got audibles, so that's letting us know that we are being tracked or locked on by an enemy aircraft or ground target. Also to mention that the RWR does not distinguish between friend or foe, So don't go by that by looking for targets. You need to also have, you know, a bit of knowledge on what's going on around in the mission and who's up and about. Don't just go firing willy-nilly at anything just because it's on your RWR. So let's carry on. And we've lost the target. Oh, and it's back again. You can see it's got that dome above it to let you know that that's the new target. Another thing to add is that we've got some lights on here as well. So we've got SAM, CW and AI, just to let you know that the threats are there. And here we have those threat indicator lights in more detail. So the first light is SAM, so SAM Launch Detective. 2 is CW, which is continuous wave, and the radar is locked on aircraft from ground tracking. The third is AI, which is air intercept radar is locked on aircraft, flashes if launch is detected, radar is guiding a missile. And the last one is AAA, anti-aircraft artillery gun radar is locked on aircraft. So yeah, let's carry on. Okay, now you can see that we've got an 8 that's moved into the next ring, so the SA8 OSA has acquired us. So let's see if we can get a lock. We've got a launch. We managed to dodge that one. And that one. Fired upon again. Not sure where that one's coming from. Whoa, that was close. Okay, it looked like the goal wanted to have a go at me there, but there we go. We ran into the target area, or the danger area, and we've been shot at multiple times. The countermeasures did their job. The Ecm Pod did its job against the Goa. although you need to remember that the closer to the target you get, the higher rate of burn through there will be from the sound system, so it'll be able to burn through your blocking signals and then be able to acquire you. So it's not an invincibility jacket or a get out of jail free card. It's just there to give you a little bit of extra leeway, so you can get in just that little bit closer, lock on and destroy the target before you get too close, and it has the advantage of being able to fire back. So I'm actually quite surprised I survived that. So yeah, so if you got this far, thank you for watching, and as always, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.